one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Sienna.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Losi?
Here.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Here.
Mayor Long?
Here. Thank you. We do have one introduction of a new conference center coordinator tonight.
Good evening. I need to fix this. Mayor Long and City Council members. The newest conference center coordinator really needs no introduction because everybody already knows who she is. She's worked for the city of Fortuna as a police dispatcher for 9 years, and she was also a CSO for Fortuna. It's Kaylin Stainbrook, in case you hadn't guessed. But there are a few things that you may not know about her. Her favorite movie is Ever After. I didn't know that. Her favorite hobbies are playing softball, camping, and designing plans for houses. Her favorite food is dulce de leche ice cream, and she'll never be caught eating octopus. Her favorite color is not pink, but I'm adjusting. Kaylin has been married for 8 years and has 2 children, and I feel extremely lucky to have Kaylin as the new conference center coordinator at River Lodge. She brings fresh ideas and experience that will surely boost the success of the River Lodge and the Monday Club. It's my pleasure to welcome Kaylin Stainbrook to the city of Fortuna.
Thank you, Kaylin.
I'm back. It's me again, Kaylin. I'm really excited to be working with Jennifer down at the River Lodge and the Monday Club. Apparently, I really like the Monday Club because, as you know, I was just working in there. And I don't have too much to say because she already said it all, but I'm looking forward to working with you all. Continued. Thank
All
you.
right, welcome back.
Thank you.
Our next item is oral comments from the public. If you would like to address the council on anything that is not...
This
She's not here. We're not doing that. If you would like to address the council on anything not on the agenda, you can have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Long and Honorable City Council. So, unfortunately, I have some bad news to pass on to both the council and the public. We released this information over the weekend, but I just wanted to confirm it. And just for formalities, Casey Day, Chief of Police, Fortuna Police Department. It is with a heavy heart that I share the passing of retired Fortuna Police K-9 Nordy. Nordy passed away Saturday evening from natural causes, primarily age. Nordy joined the Fortuna Police Department in 2014 and served with 2 handlers during his time with the Fortuna Police Department, ultimately ending up with Sergeant Prima Fori from 2016 to 2019. In 2019, after 5 years of service, K-9 Nordy retired. He has enjoyed a full retirement with Sergeant Prima Fori and the Prima Fori family. And from my home to his, I wish the Prima Fori family all the prayers. It can be a very difficult time for the family and the children who have grown to create such a powerful bond with the dog. Nordy was an outstanding canine, no doubt, who had an exemplary career. During his career, he made many friends and protected many citizens and officers throughout the county of Humboldt. Nordy will be missed, and we are forever grateful for his service and the impact he made within the community and the department. A memorial stone has been commissioned in remembrance of Nordy, which will be displayed inside of the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else have any comments from the public? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. If you are watching from home, this is a Zoom meeting as well. If you would like to call in when we get to any of the items and give your input or make comments when we open public comment for each item, please dial the number on your screen, follow the directions there, and you will be able to speak. All right, moving on to our consent calendar. We have 5 items, including city council minutes, report of disbursements, approval of a memorandum of understanding between the city of Fortuna and the Fortuna Senior Center, award of a bid for the 2022 Vansel Tree Removal Project timber sale to Humboldt Redwood Company, and to ratify the First Amendment to agreement for the Chief of Police. Would anyone wish to pull anything? All right.
Make a motion, we approve consent calendar items A through E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving on to city council business. Public hearing for the second reading to consider amendment of the Fortuna Municipal Code regarding state mandated procedures for SB 9 urban lot splits and two-unit projects by amending Title 17 zoning regulations of the Fortuna Municipal Code, Chapter 17.09, state mandated procedures, and Title 16 subdivision, Section 16.04.070, urban lot splits, ordinance 2022-752. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Long, for reading the title for us. That saves me a lot of explanation because it's kind of all in there. So yeah, this is the second reading. We held the first reading at the previous council meeting on the 1st, and it did vote, you did vote to pass that, so this is just the second reading. And it's for the state mandated subdivision lot splits, two-unit lot splits or two-lot splits, and two-unit development projects within all residential neighborhoods. So and we do have the urgency ordinance that is in effect since January, and it's been in effect. We haven't had any applications for urban lot splits or developments, but we do have a couple of inquiries that look, like they may likely would be moving forward. They seem to be straightforward urban lot splits, so it is a complicated ordinance, but so we appreciate that they're pretty straightforward, and we'll be able to implement those. So for the second reading, I have the PowerPoint, but if you want to take a look at it, I'm just going to otherwise briefly go over the design standards that are being added to that urgency ordinance really are, they're kind of straightforward design standards for consistency purposes, consistency between existing and new houses, and, for new units, applying to garage conversions, entrance orientation, second-story decks and stairs, and really for privacy impacts, window standards and things like that. So none of the standards have changed. Several minor changes have been, and I've described those briefly in the staff report, really just for editing and clarity. I moved the Planning Commission use permit for exceptions, to just a location where I think it's more clear. Noticed a couple of edits that I removed, references to ADUs, and then on the historic properties table, deleted the columns that apply to standard properties because they are already in the language of the code, and there was a few inconsistencies between those, so I just deleted that column altogether, and the language sections will be implemented. So if you have any questions, I'll pass that back to the council.
Thank you, Liz. Any questions from the council? I'll open public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move back to the council.
I'll just make a comment that I'm really glad that we did send this back to the Planning Commission rather than piecemeal. It is on. Yeah. So it's more complete at this point.
Yeah, I think there are very reasonable design standards, and they're for privacy and consistency between neighborhoods, so that they're beneficial.
I'll make a motion to hold the second reading and adopt ordinance 2022-752 and read by title only.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Ordinance 2022-752, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fortuna, amending Chapter 17.09, state mandated procedures of Title 17, zoning regulations of the Fortuna Municipal Code, and by amending Section 16.04.070, urban lot splits of Title 16, subdivisions, and determining the ordinance to be exempt from CEQA and repealing urgency ordinance number 751. Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Losi?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Yes.
Mayor Long?
Yes. All right, thank you. Moving on to our next item, which is a discussion regarding the Fortuna Business Improvement District staffing. Staff report, please. Merritt?
Thank you, Mayor Long. I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation that I put together for this. 1 second. It's a little tricky with the Zoom on here. Let's see.
What are you trying to share?
I was trying to share.
We appreciate your patience while we try to navigate new technology.
Thanks for your patience. We're still working through all of our
We've got it.
new system. So if the council remembers at our last city council meeting, the council provided direction to contract with the chamber to complete a subset of events, a number of things that FBID historically had done, including the kids-free movies, the Al Gray lighted parade, some new decorations for downtown in a subset. So what was really left is that because the chamber wasn't going to take on, the full FBID slate of responsibilities, that leaves a fair amount of administrative and other work that the city can do to complete the remainder of the work that needs to be done that's not included in the chamber agreement. And so really what I wanted to bring back for discussion, and I don't expect to take too long, is just how staff would like to approach completing those remaining tasks that are not being subcontracted or included in MOU with the chamber. So what staff is considering at this point is we'd like to hire a full-time person. We don't think that the amount of work necessary to do the remaining tasks would be, it'd be necessary to have a full-time person. But so we would like to budget for hiring a part-time person for up to 29 hours a week. And if necessary, we could assign that employee other administrative tasks that aren't part of the FBID budget to reduce the number, to keep the number of hours at 29 and to have somebody on board working a reasonable amount of hours. Some of the tasks that, and I don't expect you to read all these, but this is just a list of tasks that an employee would do or it would be necessary to complete. But one of them would be to organize and provide administrative support for the FBID advisory committee. We're going to have to seat a new advisory committee, and then there will have to be the oversight and development of agendas and overseeing those meetings. There's a number of other programs aside from what the chamber is doing that could be implemented and other additional programs completed this year. There'd be monitoring and development of a budget, administering and overseeing the MOU with the chamber, and also I'd hope that this position could participate in some of the planning work that the chamber is going to do some of those different events and the parade. They could also, one of the things that came up at the last meeting is really kind of laying out some of the ground rules for the core areas on expenditures. This position could assist the core areas with event planning, marketing, and then general support, and also put together the guidelines for spending and reimbursement for the core areas, and also seek to just do the community outreach to seat people in the core areas and have enough people for a subcommittee. If the council recalls, we revised the municipal code to require at least 3 people in each subcommittee, and we've had a problem getting folks to participate. So this person could really be in the point for the outreach. And then organize a concert event or music event. That's one of the purposes in the Fortuna Municipal Code that we really haven't seen FBID do in the past. So that would be a good one for this position to be able to take responsibility for. Also to provide updates and communication with businesses, and then really take the empty retail database that was created with the chamber's retail strategy work, and then maintain that and make that really a city living document of where are our vacant business spaces. Again, that's one of the explicit purposes for FBID in the municipal code that really hasn't been taken on in the past. So it would be good to formalize that, and we have a head start with what's being done by retail strategies. And then create a plan for outreach to the limited English proficiency community. That's another part that'd be good for businesses and also the consumers. and then also consider grant opportunities, and then ultimately present the annual report. That's one of the requirements under Streets and Highway Code, that annual report is completed and presented to the city council for consideration and acceptance. So there's a number of things this position could do and could expand into in the future. In putting together a budget, it's a little bit conservative. We're almost 1 quarter into this year's budget. This really considers an annual budget, but on the left and in the green, you can see the proposed budget. This is what includes how much revenue FBID would have. You can see that there are the assessments and the amount that comes from each of the core area, the amount of matching city revenue, which is also in the budget. So the total revenue for FBID would be $123,000. That includes 50% of that. 50% of that of which is the city match. And then on the expenses side, we anticipate that, we call the position a community business liaison, that we'd have to pay approximately 24 hours a week, 29 hours, so it'd be about $36,000. There's some line items in the budget for training, for the deferred compensation plan, the workers' comp, and then some budget line items for the office expenses, fuel for going various places, a storage unit that currently houses the remnant material left over from FBID, some funding for marketing and promotion, the core area, including the core area disbursement, so that's $16,000. $16,740 is what goes back to the areas. The MailChimp is a program to be able to communicate with the folks that pay the assessment, and some of the other multimedia things that they would need. And then also you can see there's a line item in there for the chamber MOU, which was $16,212. So it looks like the total expenses are about $81,000. Again, that assumes that it's for the entire year. We're already 1 quarter in, so it likely would be less than that. And so with this, there would be approximately $40,000 left out of the approximately $61,000 the city contributes. So this is an approximate budget. So what staff would like to do is get direction from the council to bring back an updated organizational chart and supplemental budget request for the items that are included that I just showed you. And then we could begin recruiting for a community business liaison position, and then seek formal approval for the update to the org chart and the budget at the next city council meeting. And one of the things that's exciting about this position is, I do think it would provide a good opportunity to provide a link between the city and its businesses. There really hasn't been a dedicated position for that. In the past, it fell to FBID, and, as the council knows, FBID was a separate nonprofit corporation. So that's personally one that I'd be excited about, is having somebody to coordinate that relationship with the city's businesses. And, there's other duties that could come into it, whether it's helping businesses with encroachment permits or figuring out different processes. I think it would be a cleaner way, having somebody on staff to be able to help shepherd those businesses through the process, I think would be one of the benefits that isn't really explicit in FBID's purpose, but it'd be one of those things that I think would organically happen, having somebody on staff that has familiarity with the business and also other city staff positions. So, and again, one of the reasons we're requesting direction to go with a temporary position, it's unclear to me what our involvement will be from the business community in the next year. And I think really what we need to see in the coming year is the volunteers from the business community to be on the board, and then also participation with the advisory committee to make this a success. So again, we were hesitant to have a full-time position for this role until we know that it's something that's going to be continued by the council in the future. So that concludes what I have prepared for my staff report, and I'd be willing to take direction from council and the 2 items that I'm looking for on the presentation.
So what happens to the $40,000 excess?
It's city general funds that wouldn't be applied to the match. So they just would stay in
Okay.
the general fund.
Okay.
And the $60,000 would be expended first from the FBID assessment, and then any remainder would be left. And similarly, if, we increase the budget and we brought something more to the council, if we don't include it in the budget that we bring back in a supplemental budget request, we'd have to ask for permission. So say, for example, we came back and we wanted to do, a whole new wayfinding or themes for, decorating for downtown. We needed more money for signs, and that expense was above what we had budgeted. We'd have to bring that back, but then we'd have even though the money's already in the budget, we'd want to bring that to council for approval. So it's possible we could use more or less, but I think right now this is a conservative budget for what we need to do, especially given we're already 1 quarter just about into the fiscal year.
Okay. Anyone from the council have questions?
So I'm along the same lines with you about the 40,000. It sounds like once we have an advisory committee, that's much like the Major E committee, that's where the community has the opportunity to bring ideas on how to beautify downtown or to bring in events or things like that. And then we have that seed money to do that work. Is that?
That's right.
Okay.
And one of the things that we do have also is we do have the funds that were transferred from FPID to the city when the nonprofit corporation dissolved. So there, I believe it's $26,000 approximately that were transferred to the city. So we really just looked at it on the current year, but those funds could be applied as well. And I think that's something that we'd really want to ask the advisory committee. How do you make them aware of how many funds are available? What kind of things would you like to see? And that's really where a staff person could kind of start to create ideas and think about, hey, what could we do to promote our businesses? Again, I think the tricky part is going to be getting that involvement. How do we get a subcommittee, for example, for the Redwood Village core area, or now that we've had some key players like Bob Judavine leave Strongs Creek, how can we get that interest and activity level up to have those subcommittees up and running?
Mike.
Just for clarification, the chamber has some very specific events that they're going to be working on and developing.
That's right.
And they will have a particular person from the chamber office, whether it's Stephanie or somebody else, who will be working on those events. Some of these tasks that you have outlined will overlap with those events, with whoever is going to be coordinating those. So there will have to be some coordination back and forth between this part-time person and whoever is handling it from the chamber side, correct?
My hope would be that this part-time employee could really be the go-between between the chamber and the city. If not, that would be something that would fall to the city manager to really oversee and administer that MOU. But if we find somebody who's capable of working with, has the background necessary, they'd be able to work with the chamber, monitor what's happening, and participate in that process along with the chamber, not really doing the task work. The chamber would do that, but we still have a responsibility for oversight of those chamber activities with MOU. So, understanding what they're doing in the process to fulfill the requirements in the MOU, and that would fall on this position.
And so the person, whoever is hired for this position then, would have the clear understanding that it would be temporary, part-time.
That's right. It's much like the Economic Development Coordinator. I think that was the title. Jennifer Brown did that position for a short time for the city, but they report directly to the city manager, and it's a part-time temporary position.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. First, is there still an audit that's going to be required yearly for FBID?
So there won't be an audit. Aaron might be able to say more, but the city finance department would be completing the expenditures. And so that information would be completed in the city audit. There are some additional reporting requirements that the finance department would have, but right now we haven't included city staff time for that, so it would be treated more like a city fund in, like one of any other funds that we have in the city budget, and the expenditures would all flow through the city. So there's not going to be a separate bank account for FBID. It'll just be the city paying for and paying those funds. The one area where we would have to come up with, I don't think it would require a separate audit, but one of the things that we'll have to do is establish guidelines for the spending for the core areas, and how do we track that, and how do we get the summary of expenditures. But I don't think it'll require a separate audit of the core areas, really just an explanation in a summary of their expenditures that gets submitted to our finance department, and that would be incorporated into the city budget.
Then my next question was, we talked about helping events or new events with their insurance. So would this be one of the responsibilities of this person?
Certainly they could contribute. A lot of that's going to run through our risk manager and our city clerk and risk manager. I think really just getting, that's one of the areas we need to identify, but I think the central question is, can different events be covered under the city insurance or not? And I think it would be up to the advisory committee if they want to furnish insurance or make a payment to, say, for example, 3rd of July fireworks or Auto Expo. If the advisory committee recommends using FBID funds to cover the cost of an insurance certificate to support that event, I would defer to the advisory committee in their judgment is this the best use of the FBID funds? And so I think for spending decisions, advisory committee, insurance coverage by the city versus, a separate certificate, it would really be in consultation with our risk manager and our risk pool, if it should and can be covered. So I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. I don't have a specific answer right now.
And then my last question is, where do you expect this person to fall on the pay scale?
So we put a pay scale similar to a senior administrative assistant. So I think that ranges from 23 to about $27 or $28. So our budget anticipates the salary of $24 an hour. And that might be tough for a part-time, non-benefited position, but that's, what I think, if we can find the right person who has an interest here, I think it's a fair amount of pay for a job that, has a lot of administrative skills required and then also creativity. So that's what our guess was at what a reasonable pay scale would be for that role.
So looking ahead and looking back, we might look at this and say that FBID's future kind of hangs in what the business community participation is for the board and things such as that.
I would agree, absolutely. I think the council should really consider, again, the assessment is paid by the businesses to the city, and the city, that has a vehicle, the Streets and Highway Code, that allowed the city to create the assessment, and it's for the benefit of the businesses. So I think some of the problems that we've had in the past were due to lack of participation. And I know there's other businesses that are interested in participating, but if our businesses don't step up and, give their viewpoint or volunteer for the advisory committee, I think the council should really question next year whether we continue or not, continuing the assessment. But I think this year we have a good shot. We're going to produce some of the events with the MOU with the chamber. We're going to have a community business liaison. So even though we're a little bit less than a year, we have an ability to demonstrate some of the value that we could bring with this assessment. And ultimately at the end of the year, we're going to complete an annual report, and the council's going to have to decide, they'll have, the request will be to accept the annual report, and then the decision will be, do we renew this again? And I think we should wait to hear from our businesses and see what they think and whether or not they want it. But the sentiment at the last meeting, Councilmember Johnson, I don't think you were here, but a lot of the folks that were here did say they valued what FBID can provide, and so that was the sentiment among most of the businesses that showed up.
It's just unfortunate that we've gotten to this point, and a lot of it, stems from lack of participation from the business community, but also a lack on the city's part for oversight. We have now evolved FBID into partly city, more city than what I would have liked, because when government takes something over like this, they never do a good job. And I'm hoping for the best, and I hope that the business community steps up, and I hope that the chamber can do what they need to do to bring these events back, and that at the end of this fiscal year, the council is able to put this back to the business community, and so we become a pass-through again for these fees. That's what it was meant to be all along. So that's what we're shooting for, I hope, in the future.
That's what I hope. I mean, I'd like to see it succeed again, and I know that there's parts of FBID that really the business community took advantage of, insurance being one of them, because we all know what insurance rates have done. And for having events downtown, and I'm not sure about Strong's Creek Plaza, but they may have participated in that too, I'm not sure. But it'd be nice to get representation from the community on to an advisory board so that they're participating and learning how all this functions.
So I think one of the steps, again, the recommendation is to direct staff to complete the updated organizational chart and advertise for a community business liaison. And then the other part, which I don't really need direction for, is because it's already in the municipal code, is to advertise for volunteers for the advisory committee. But I don't think I'd want to wait on that. I think we want to do that as soon as possible. And as we bring somebody on board, have them integrate. But I think for now, the city manager's office would take that up with assistance from other staff. And, you know, that way we could get things moving and have a advisory committee in place even as we bring that person on. So those are the main focus. I'd expect the approval of the organizational chart and the budget request to be pretty routine and not require a lot of discussion. Most of the things I showed you, they'd reflect what I showed you this evening.
Well, the money is there, and I think the sooner you move on it, the better. That's my feeling.
Merritt, I would like to work on a letter to send out to all the businesses. Can we just use our business license database and send a letter explaining what we're trying to do and the involvement that we need from businesses and how to apply?
Yeah, I need to think about that. There's an email listserv that was developed, but it has about 983 addresses, and a lot of them are, you know, go beyond our businesses. So I'm not sure what that would take, but yes, we can find a way to do that, is the short answer. And I think it would be good. I think, you know, where the city needs to really do a good job is that communication and outreach. And I think if the city does our part and we let people know and we have that direct and personal outreach, I think we'll get the involvement that we need.
Okay. All right, so do we have direction from Merritt to pursue the part-time person? All right.
All right, thank
Is
you.
that all you need? Okay. So the next item is city manager's report. You know what, let's go back. Does anybody from the public want to comment on the FBID discussion? All right, just wanted to make sure. Okay, Merritt.
So I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to show. It's the meeting agenda. I'd like to review our upcoming meeting schedule. So our next regular council meeting is on September 6th. And just to remind everybody, that's on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. to recognize the holiday on the 5th. On September, then our next council meeting after that will be Thank you. Let me start from the beginning. Our next regular council meeting will be on Tuesday, September 6th. And after that, our next regular council meeting will be on September 19th. We have our planning commission meeting on August 23rd at 6 o'clock p.m. Our Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting, September 7th. And then our next Measure E meeting is on September 20th. And so one of the things that we're doing right now is we do have the ability for the public to join the Zoom meetings. I see that there are some people that have joined in tonight. We contemplated bringing an emergency ordinance, emergency resolution back to council to be able to allow the council to hybrid into meetings, but I didn't want to proceed with that. It seemed like a lot of that was based on COVID safety protections, and at this point, it seems that we're able to get the participation. It would have really been more for convenience, I think, than the emergency COVID purposes. So for the time being, we're going to allow the public to participate by Zoom, but unless the council feels differently, we're going to have, we will not have the ability, and I don't plan to bring a resolution back to the council for remote participation by the council. So the next, a few other items I want to report on. We do have 5 qualified candidates to run for city council. I think this will be the first time in a while that we've had more people running than we've had positions, so it's great to see people interested and wanting to get involved. One of the pieces of news we had been working for some time with a developer that was proposing a distribution facility at the mill site, but they ceased work on their project. So, you know, it's a little disappointing, but there's, you know, the one upside to that is that we do have other interested parties, and so that site is getting some attention. I'm very optimistic about other folks wanting to come in with project proposals in the near future. So stay tuned. I think we'll be able to report more back in the future. One of the things I heard from our finance director and via an email recently was that, you know, as could be expected, the PERS portfolio didn't function didn't do as well as we'd hoped. So it's just something to keep our eye on for the next year. They lost 6% this year, and I think they were expecting a 5% return, and so when you go, or a 7% return, so that ended up being a 13% difference. So that's one of the things we'll have to watch really closely with the preparation of the budget, and it's something that we're thinking about with all of the decisions that we make right now. One of the other things is I will be out the remainder of the week taking vacation time, so our finance director will be acting city manager. A couple other things too, we're making very good progress on our recruitments. We filled almost all of our positions that we've had a hard time staffing for some time, and we actually have people wanting to apply for positions that were already full, so very good on the employment front. And then the last thing is I hope to bring back an MOU with the Chamber of Commerce. They've agreed to make a website and help manage the people mover in exchange for, I think, 15% of the proceeds. So Renee has some really good ideas with the Chamber for booking that, and it'll take some of the burden of doing that off of city staff. So that's another thing that we'll be bringing back pretty soon. The city would have the responsibility for inspecting it and storing it, which was a problem for the people mover in the past, and then the booking and use part would be done by the Chamber. So another collaborative project with the Chamber that I think will be good for the city and the Chamber. That's all I have to report.
So can the council join via Zoom without a resolution? I mean,
The council
when would a council member be able to join via Zoom for a meeting?
not as a voting member, but as a member of the public participating in the meeting. But unless we pass Sienna may be able to help me out with that, an emergency resolution recognizing the COVID emergency, then the council would only be able to listen in on the meeting but not vote.
Well, then what's the point? Okay.
Right, so it's really for the public, we have the hybrid capability for the public, and if the council is concerned and would like us to, pass a resolution allowing council member participation remotely due to the COVID concerns, we're happy to bring it back, but right now, it seems like that isn't the direction that the council was preferring. So I'm happy to take direction if the council wants to see that. We have future agenda items. I'm happy to put it on there.
So if somebody's just on vacation, you can't participate?
Not unless we pass we adopt an emergency resolution and find that necessary for the COVID emergency.
Well, we're not gonna go on vacation if we have COVID, so that doesn't work.
Right. Well, you could pass the resolution and then you could participate if you're on vacation, but the premise for the remote participation is that it's to protect public health and.
HCOG,
Well, we wouldn't be doing
it's on the
that.
consent calendar every month.
Ryan, our city attorney, Ryan Plotz, is also, pardon me, joined via Zoom, but I think the idea is that you can't vote as a quorum if there is a remote council member. So unless we adopt the emergency ordinance stating the ongoing state of emergency based on COVID restrictions, then you have to be present to vote, physically present, but the public can participate via Zoom option.
So I'm still trying to find out why would we not pass that resolution?
I guess I'd just ask the council for direction. If you feel that we need to, if it's really, I'll take the direction of the council. If the council would like to pass the resolution recognizing the COVID emergency and the need to participate remotely, we'll bring it back at the next meeting. And if not, then we'll require attendance in person of the council members.
It's an option for council members as well as for the public. And it's my understanding, and Sienna would know more about this as far as direction from the state legislature, that there's been discussion about making those kinds of moves permanent without having to declare an emergency and have a resolution every month or every 30 days.
Well, I cannot imagine our council not coming in public and wanting to participate from home. That defeats the whole purpose of being visible and available to your public.
Oh, absolutely, but it does give an option, like when Mike was on vacation out
They're
of
saying
town.
it's not for vacation, it's only if you have COVID.
With the resolution, you could still participate remotely, but
Absolutely.
the premise is that it's for the protection, not for convenience, I think, is the distinction. And so when I was reading that emergency resolution our city attorney put through, it didn't seem like the reason that the council was considering doing it, so I felt uncomfortable proceeding for those purposes. Certainly, you could participate remotely, even if it wasn't a COVID-related reason, if we have the resolution, but
It just gives us an option.
I kind of like that because you never know when we're going to come down with a flu or something important's on the agenda and we have to be out of town or something. It's nice to actually be able to participate and have the full council.
I'd be happy to put on a future agenda. It sounds like
We've
there's
also been
interest.
very flexible when we know that people are going to be gone and moving something really important to the next meeting.
Ryan is on and available for comment now.
Hey, Ryan, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's probably a good idea to just leave it as a consent item throughout the state of emergency, which at the state level, which is still in effect. Once that state of emergency is no longer declared by the governor, then in order to use the virtual meeting allowance, the council will have to make specific findings that virtual meetings are necessary for the health and safety of the council and the public. And so for now, while we have that state of emergency, it's probably not a bad idea to just leave it on consent for each meeting to be utilized if needed.
So health and safety is not the same as convenience for when you're on vacation, so that's a whole different thing.
Correct. The state of emergency overrides any need to make health and safety findings, so long as it's in place. But once it's gone, then you'll have to make specific findings. And, convenience, being out of town, those types of things that are unrelated to the pandemic would not be sufficient.
We're happy to bring it. We have a staff report together in a resolution. We can bring it to the next meeting. So I'll treat this as a future agenda item, and we'll bring it back, and the council can contemplate it with the resolution in front of them.
Okay, I have one more question. A few years ago, I was on a city business trip down in the LA area, and I was able to participate in a meeting by having it agendized and putting an agenda on the hotel room door. Is that something that is still an option if we happen to be out of town, or is that?
Yes, and, I'll let our city attorney weigh in, but I believe we can publicly notice that location and have it posted on the door, but theoretically it'd be available to the public. So yes, that's still the same option.
With the emergency proclamation or resolution, I don't think you have to do that, but Ryan would know.
Ryan,
But
do you
it's
want
not
to?
health and
Yeah,
welfare, so if she's on vacation, it's
I
different.
don't think it matters because of the
It
state
matters.
emergency proclamation.
So I think,
So that's why I was saying, if we just keep it on consent and reaffirm the findings each meeting, then any council member can use it for any meeting because it's something we're doing on a routine basis. If we put it for a one-off for a council member being out of town, then it looks to be totally unrelated to the pandemic. And so that's why I think if we just leave it as a consent item for all future meetings until the state of emergency has been rescinded, that gives the council the flexibility. I know your strong preference is to be there in person, and of course, you can still continue to do that. With respect to the default virtual meeting provisions under the Brown Act, generally speaking, under the Brown Act, you're supposed to still be within the jurisdiction of the city when you remote in, posting the meeting on the front door and having that location open. And so traveling down south and posting it, on a hotel room door would not pass muster under the default Brown Act provisions. But those, I think, are going to get revamped post-pandemic because I think the legislature has seen that the virtual meeting allowance through the pandemic has actually increased rather than decreased public participation. The technology is better. A lot of public entities are putting in the technology like the city has to continue to utilize this. And so I think we will see some legislation prior to the state of emergency being rescinded that in some way, shape, or form makes these types of allowances permanent to give councils some flexibility going forward.
based on what I've heard, I think we'll include this as a future agenda item.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to future agenda items. Anything else?
Just an item for discussion. Chat.
Sienna, somebody's on the chat. What do we do about that?
You read it into the record, or?
I don't know if Sienna knows this.
There was a message from Supervisor Bushnell just saying that it was the same for the board, that they're not able to vote remotely, and then it was a message from Ryan.
Okay, thanks. All right, any other future agenda items that we haven't talked about before? All right, city council reports. Mike Johnson.
Well, it's been an interesting July and August so far. I got to participate in 2 of the 3 events in July, and it was a great, both of them came off great. Participation, public, people from out of town was an awesome thing. The policy committee meeting that I was scheduled to go to in Long Beach was canceled, so that's not on the agenda anymore. I don't have to do that. We do have an HCOG meeting this coming Thursday. The one in July was canceled, so I'm looking forward to that. It's kind of like this one. It'll be short, a lot of consent items, and some discussion. I'm looking forward to that. And then our Redwood Division meeting coming up at Point Arena. That'll be a nice segue back into Cal Cities. So at this moment, that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Mike. The other Mike.
Thank you. Going back all the way to June 23rd, I had a Redwood Coast Energy Authority meeting, and the directors decided to continue the meetings via Zoom because none of the various venues that we were looking at were available to host the monthly meetings, and there's still concern about COVID by the directors. We received a annual report from Richard Engel regarding the MOU between RCEA and Humboldt Sawmills, which we're required to do annually on long-term contracts that are 10 years or longer. And the report was mostly the feedstock chips that are used or that comes from that Redwood Sawmills uses. At least 80%, 90% of it does come from Humboldt County. RCEA buys approximately 69% of the electricity that Humboldt Sawmill produces. And the directors approved an amendment to the contract with Sandrini Solar Project. It's a project that I've been talking about over the last year. It's a huge solar project down in the San Bernardino, I want to say, desert. And it looks like the construction is scheduled, tracking to be in advance of the July 23rd extension. So that should go forward, and hopefully we'll be receiving clean energy, clean solar energy from this project. We received a report regarding the Fairhaven Energy Storage Project and included resource output and timelines. This is a 17.25 megawatt battery storage facility that will be located on the Samoa Peninsula. And then we adopted the 22-23 budget with no changes from the proposed May budget. And under the worst conditions, the authority should end up with about $8 million in reserves. And under favorable conditions, we should end up with around $30 million in reserves. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But you're talking about a budget with RCEA of right around $100 million. We are advised that into the next fiscal year, we're well hedged, so our costs won't be or shouldn't be as volatile as the market seems to be right now. You probably have noticed fluctuations, mostly going up with your electric bill in particular. That was about it with RCEA. On July 20th, we had a LAFCO meeting, and the commission moved the Salmon Creek Fire Protection District formation forward. This has been ongoing for the last year, And it will now move to an election for registered voters within the proposed district to whether they support this proposal or not. It'll be supported by a parcel tax of about $75 per parcel annually. And the fire chief reported that it is widely supported within the community of Salmon Creek. This is the Salmon Creek that's down off of Highway 101 down near, Garberville toward southern Humboldt, in southern Humboldt. Commission also moved forward with the Garberville Fire Protection District annexation. This will add about 36,000 acres from the Benbow area, Kimtu Airport, Bear Canyon, Alder Point Road, Richardson's Grove, and the Sproul Creek Volunteer Response Area, and consolidating with that Sproul Creek Volunteer Response Area. There were several individuals who called in supporting the annexation because with the addition of all of this acreage being under now the Garberville Volunteer Fire Department, the cost of insurance is going to come way down, in particular for commercial establishments. It was amazing the amount of money, and some of the business owners told us how much they were paying. It's astronomical down there just because of the fire danger, wildfire danger that they're facing down there. That's all I have.
All right, thanks, Mike. Jeremy?
So we've already discussed FBID, but I did want to just say thank you to several community members, either interested members of our community in general or business owners that stopped by my office to discuss the FBID prior to our special workshop a week ago. So feel free to do that or continue to do that. My door is always open for that kind of conversation. Last week, we were supposed to have our Park and Rec Commission meeting. There wasn't enough new business on the agenda to hold the meeting, and our director was on vacation, much needed, much deserved after such a busy season and rodeo week and auto expo and kitty camp and all the things that they do all year round. And I noticed that there was several new soccer fields striped for the soccer season, and that there's a lot of practices going on there. So you can definitely see, if you pay attention at all, you're going to see that our Parks and Rec department is hard at work. And other than that, I think that's all I have to report as well.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. Tammy?
I just want to report that Hops and Humboldt is August 27th, and it's, what was it, 2 years or 3 years?
That we didn't have it?
Yeah.
2.
2 years that we didn't have it, so it's back on again. And just remember, 100% of those profits made from that goes back into the community for grants, so it's a good program there. And then I've had a lot of people ask me about apple harvest. And so I actually talked to Cliff Condenin, who puts it on, and since he's had knee surgery, he doesn't have quite the time that he did. This year, it will happen. It just may be a little bit smaller, and unfortunately, there won't be any hay rides. So, but it is still going to happen, so I was happy to hear that, and that's all I have to report.
All right, thanks, Tammy. So I haven't had a whole lot of meetings since our last council meeting. I am also attending the Redwood Empire Division of Cal Cities on Friday in Point Arena, so that will be fun to see everybody and catch up with all of the other council members in the area. We do have one closed session item, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of section 54956.9. We have one case. If anyone would like to comment on that item, now would be the time. Seeing none, we need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn to closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you guys for coming.